right, welcome, Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Monday, December 23rd, 2019, 357 days into the new year, just 8 days left, and we are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. And tonight is our Merry Quittmas special. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, The Planet, I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, our guest is Jason Quitt, and we're going to take the next 2 nights off for Quittmas Eve and Quittmas Day. And then on Thursday, we're taking the night off for our annual holiday party at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. So technically, we're working, right? Right. There you go. That's our week here. I want everybody to celebrate with friends and family. And we're going to have a great time tonight with Jason Quitt. We're going to go through the history of Christmas. We're going to do all of that tonight. And we're going to partake in a few things. We've got some lists that we're going to put together and talk about the things that we're doing here with our family here in Burbank and what Jason and Monica do to celebrate Christmas up there in Toronto. They've got a few ways that they have to do it too as well, and we do the same thing here in Burbank. So we'll be doing all of that tonight. We're going to have a great time. So just kick back, and if you're here to spend your holiday time with us, just enjoy yourself. We're just going to have an amazing show tonight. So enjoy all of it. Okay, now you can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio, which is simple. Follow me on JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Hashtag F2B. You can jump in on the conversation over there. We will post tonight, I am sure, a few thousand tweets will be happening with all of the Fadernauts. We also have 2 chat rooms open, one over at Spreaker and one over at KGRA The Planet, and you can chat room your night away there too as well. Now, you can email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com, and any questions or comments, you can post it right there on Twitter, hashtag F2BQ. Okay? All right. Email, did I just do that? Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. And I just mentioned this Thursday, the day after Christmas, is our Fade to Black holiday party at the Rainbow Bar and Grill in Hollywood, California. It's totally free. Just come and hang out. I would like everybody to go and RSVP over on Facebook so we can get a rough head count. We'd like to see how many people are attending. And we have lots of gifts and things that we're giving away from our sponsors. And I do want to thank River Moon Coffee for what they have sent out to the Fadernauts. Absolutely incredible. Ronnie McMullen of Life Change Tea. Also, Saucer is going to be there, and David Salcido and the rest of the family from Saucer Sportswear. And they're going to be there too as well. And so just come and hang out with all of us. Lots of special guests are going to be stopping by. And, of course, all of you Fadernauts from around the country. So that'll be Thursday, December 26th, the day after Christmas at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. Still time to go and RSVP, and we'll see everybody there. And coming up, now we've got our holiday schedule all finished. And we've got a couple of things that we need to worry about. We've got, obviously, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. We have New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. We'll be taking those nights off. But the day after, so we've got a special show that we're doing with Billy Carson a week from today. And that will be on December 30th. That'll be next Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday, we're taking off for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. But when we return on January 2nd we've got a very special show that we are going to be doing with Danny and Brinkley. And we will get all of those up. And the replays will be happening every single night. So if you want to come and hang out, there'll be a really cool replay that I'm going to select from years past that will be playing each night. So you're not going to be left alone. There's still going to be programming. All right. And remember, we're still working too as well. Oh, man, but the next 14 days are going to be incredible. Okay, all right, that's where we are at. And tonight I have decided to do no breaking news. No breaking news tonight. Not going to do it because this is our Merry Quittmas special event. Subscribe to our podcast. It is just $2 per month. Go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on that podcast banner. It is there. There is a podcast banner on our homepage. Click on it, head over, get our podcast. It is just $2 per month. If you ever miss a live show, can't be here in the evenings, totally understand that. We have listeners from all around the world. Can't be here for a live show, then get the podcast, because right after the broadcast is finished, we upload to our podcast, and you can always have it there. Okay, so it's just $2 per month. We have over 1,160 archive shows right there. Okay, and also become a Fadernaut over at our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. You can now gift memberships, and you can find out all about that in our membership section over at jimmychurchradio.com. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today, Eddie Vedder is 55. Derek Smalls, bass player for Spinal Tap, today is 75 years old. Of course, I'm speaking about Harry Shearer. Guitar god Adrian Belew today is 70. And Iron Maiden's Dave Murray today is 63. Our dead guy's birthday today is Corey Haim. 1971 to 2010, died at the age of 38. A great and very funny actor who starred in two of my all-time favorite movies, License to Drive and Lost Boys, both with Corey Feldman, who became known as the Two Coreys. Corey's early success led to a lot of money and fame. He had difficulties breaking away from his experience as a teen actor and was troubled by drug addiction throughout his later career. He died of pneumonia on March 10th, 2010. Haim's neighbor at the Oakwood Apartments, right down the street from us here in Burbank, said that Haim could be seen wandering around the apartment complex, looking for companionship and looking for friends. Very, very sad. But I hope he's listening because we love him. Happy birthday, Corey Haim. On this day in history, 1986, after 9 days and 4 minutes in the sky, Voyager lands at Edwards Air Force Base in California, completing the first nonstop flight around the globe on one load of fuel. Fader fact: every Quittmas, the United States Air Force performs Operation Quittmas Drop, airdropping toys and other presents to children who live on remote Pacific islands. It's the longest-running U.S. Department of Defense mission in full operation and the longest-running humanitarian airlift in the world. Each year, over 140 boxes to 59 islands are dropped by C-130 Hercules aircraft. Bet you didn't know that. And that is your Fader fact. Tonight is our Merry Quittmas special with Jason Quitt. And we're going to be taking the next 2 nights off, Quittmas Eve and Quittmas Day. And then Thursday is our annual holiday party at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. So we're going to take that night off too, but technically we're still working. All right? Don't forget that. We never stop here. Now, I wanted to get to this, and I want to thank River Moon Coffee for the Fade to Black blend. It's absolutely amazing. I'm going to hit it now. Go to rivermooncoffee.com and use the promo code F2B Blend. That's F, the number 2, B Blend. F2B Blend. You will get 15% off of your order today. All right. Now, got a lot to say. I'm going to have to hit this coffee again. Over the last couple of weeks, I've talked about losing interest in a couple of big UFO subjects. Bob Lazar and Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy. Lazar and TTSA are not the first to attain this type of status with me. It's happened many times over the years. And the first time a subject was crowned with the I've Lost Interest banner was with Billy Meyer back in 1986, 1987, right in there. And I understand that there are still many people out there who believe in Billy's story, his images, his video. That's fine. But how I arrived, to the I've lost interest position with Billy Meyer is a curious one, considering it was Billy who helped bring me into ufology in the first place. So let me explain. It was 1985, and I was visiting the brother of a close friend of mine, Dale, down in Orange County, California, when I walked through his house and saw a book on a coffee table with a full-color photograph on the cover, and it was Billy Meyer's. I picked it up, flipped through its pages, looked at the UFO pics in amazement. I really couldn't believe what I was seeing, and later, Dale's brother filled me in on all things Billy Meyer. Gave me the full rundown, and I was off to the races. During this period of the mid-'80s, it was a very busy time for me in my UFO research. Things were happening quickly, and I just didn't have enough time to read and watch everything while I was working, right? I'm paying the rent, playing gigs with my band, living life, right? But I was committed to the Billy Meyer story. And then it happened. Someone told me that Billy Meyer had hoaxed everything. His pictures, his story, and his video. And I was stunned. Crushed may be a better word, actually. And I looked at the hoax evidence. And I looked at his original material. And I came to the conclusion that, well, although his story may be true, I didn't have the time to pursue it. I didn't have the time to pursue it with the same energy as before. You see, I had lost interest. I would let others chase the good, the bad, and the ugly about Meyer. But me, personally, I checked out. Now, it's very simple how this happened so quickly. How I could just pull the plug on something as big as the Meyer story. I had learned over 35 years ago how to utilize my time when it comes to researching the UFO subject, and of course, life in general. When a UFO person of interest or an organization wavers just a bit, right? But it wavers, I'm out. My time is too valuable, and there isn't enough of it available to dive into everything anyway. To go in full speed ahead, both guns blazing, all day, every day. It's just the way that it is. You get the point. This, of course, brings us to today's subject. Bob Lazar and DeLonge's To the Stars Academy, and how they've been blessed with the I have lost interest golden crown. The news media and the internet have forced us into thinking that we should be concerned about everything. Everything. And it's not just politics or sports. I mean every little tiny subcategory of anything that you can think of. Plastic straws, sugar, chicken sandwich wars, to diet or not to diet, vaping, guns, unruly flying passengers, electric cars, the weather, the planet, dogs and cats, and bad cops, good cops, shark attacks, Banksy, Saturday Night Live, Apple, streaming services, 5G, Weinstein, Epstein, Star Wars, Bitcoin, the homeless, the Kardashians. It's just on and on and on and on and on. And I didn't even mention Russia, China, Brexit, Ukraine, Canada, Mexico, or Hong Kong. And the million subcategories, and I really do mean million. The million subcategories that are reported on with everything that I just mentioned, all minutes, all day long. It has become too much. We are expected to read, watch, and be interested in everything. Which is how I learned to say, I've lost interest. It's really that simple. I've lost interest. I can't possibly apply my brain to everything all day long. I can't do it. So I've chosen when to check out. Right? Because for me, the most important question and issue for all of us is, as a planet, it's a simple one. Are we alone in the universe? That's what is important. The pursuit of the answer to that question will always have my interest. But, and there's always a but, right? I get that. But there is way too much to study and go after each day with the vigor that it deserves, and sometimes I will have to pull back when I know it's not going to go anywhere. That's right. And this is what happened recently with Bob Lazar, someone who I kept the faith with for the past 29 years. I just can't keep the same level of interest that I once had, and the reasons are both many and simple. Until there is a major breakthrough with Lazar concerning his possession of Element 115, his education, his classmates, his professors, and his employment, well, I'm out. I'm out. I've checked out. It was the recent story that was published about the FBI raid at his home, a raid that had nothing to do with Element 115 of the sport model, and everything to do with a murder investigation that was being conducted, and Bob knew this. But he decided to go along with the made-up story about it being about Bob Lazar and UFOs. And it was not. So I'm out. I've lost interest. I spent enough time on the Lazar saga, and my energy is now focused elsewhere. That's right. And the very same thing has happened with DeLong's To the Stars Academy. Too many unanswered questions linger. In fact, for me, it's way too many. The second and most recent Pentagon release, the second, about Luis Elizondo not having any assigned duties to the ATIP program, coupled with the Pentagon saying that ATIP had nothing to do with UFOs and everything to do with, well, reports. Studies about aviation and aerospace technology over the next 40 years. And that's it. There were no UFOs mentioned in the ATIP reports. So, who do you believe? Right? Because by the Pentagon saying the way that they said it, it's the truth. Because the ATIP reports back up the Pentagon statements. Fact, they say the same thing. So I, like everyone else in the UFO community, have spent the last 2 years researching, reading, and watching everything that has involved TTSA. A huge amount of time invested. And with the Pentagon making these kinds of statements that go completely against the grain of what both Elizondo and TTSA have said, I'm forced to back up and stop the car. Pump the brakes. Pump the brakes, turn off the ignition key, and get out to stretch my legs. That's where I'm at. I've lost interest. Now, like the issues that continue to haunt Lazar, until TTSA and Elizondo clean up the mess surrounding them, the public, like myself, will move on to things that deserve their valuable time. Will things change for Lazar, DeLong, and Elizondo? Anything is possible, but I'll leave it to others to pursue. For now, there are much more important issues besides Lazar and TTSA that deserve my focus, like Banksy and plastic straws. And I suggest you do the same. Pick and choose what you want to research and invest in for the new year. 2020 kicks off in just 7 days. And you need to get rid of the things that are not going anywhere. Leave it to others who are probably wasting their time, not yours. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight is our Merry Quittmas special. That's right. Get ready. I'm going to come back after this break with Jason Quitt, live from Toronto. We're going to do it all tonight. We're going to go down the history of Christmas. That's right. And it may or may not be what you think it is. We're going to get into Santa Claus, his reindeer. We're going to do it all tonight. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be right back after this short break with our guest, Jason Quitt. Stay with me. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight is our Merry Quittmas special event with Jason Quitt. Now, as we kick off the holiday season, celebrate Quittmas with us tonight as we take a look at the history, the science, and the conspiracy that has made this one of the funnest weeks of the year and one of the most popular holidays in the entire world. Jason Quitt is a graduate of the Institute of Energy Wellness, a student of the Algonquin Shamanism, and has been training and working with many teachers, shamans, and traditional healers from all around the world. He's also the author of Forbidden Knowledge, Revelations of a Multidimensional Time Traveler, the Egyptian Postures of Power, Ancient Qigong System, and the Yosef Codes, Sacred Geometry Mandalas. His website is thecrystalsun.com. The links are at Jimmy Church Radio, and I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Jason Quitt. Jason, Merry Quittmas, man.
And a Merry Quittmas to you.
All I want for Quittmas is my two front teeth. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we've been having too much fun these past couple of days.
Yeah, you know, it's so much fun. And this is certainly, you know, from Thanksgiving until after New Year's, this is my favorite time of the year, and it kicks off with Thanksgiving, which rivals Halloween. That's a big day for us. I love that. But Thanksgiving is just so wonderful. And then heading into this time of the year, it's special, and it goes back to our childhood. And I'm sure it's the same for you, right?
Absolutely. It's one of my most favorite times of the year. And Halloween is up there and Thanksgiving, but Christmas is a very special time.
Now, how do you guys, you're in Toronto, so you get a pretty good wallop of Christmas. You get snow, you get the cold, you get the vibe, right? The Christmas lights in downtown with everything supposedly snowy white, and I hope that it is. You guys get to enjoy a real version of Christmas, as opposed to us out here where we have palm trees and sand.
Yes, it's completely snowed over here, and I've been shoveling almost since the end of November. So there's plenty of snow here. And we actually set up our Christmas tree in mid-November. So we started really early, and we have lights on in the house. So it's very festive here.
And how do you guys choose to celebrate Christmas? How many do you do?
We do 2 Christmases. And one is the normal Christmas, and then one is a Ukrainian Christmas, which is actually January the 7th, which goes on the Julian calendar. So that's why it's a little different.
What do? Do you impeach your in-laws?
You know what? The food, that's all I got to say. For me, Christmas is really about the food. You can't go wrong. And I married into a Catholic Polish-Ukrainian family. So for Christmas, we get pierogies, schnitzel, what is it? Croqueta, which is like, how do I explain that? It's like a pancake wrapped with like mushrooms inside and mushroom gravy. It's ridiculously good.
Yeah, we do all the same stuff here, man. Oh, just so good. And we were over at Rita's parents' house yesterday, and we left with a huge pan of frozen things. That pretty much everything that you just list. And, you know, her mom and her aunt sit around and do nothing but bake and cook. And get ready. And we got sent home with the good stuff yesterday, man. Oh, so good. So good. Now, and what about you? Your background is what?
My background, actually, I was born into a Jewish family. So we also celebrate Hanukkah as well. So it's now we have Hanukkah going on, which started on the 22nd of December. And it goes up until December 30th, where we light the candles each day. So it's like you get the best of both worlds. You celebrate Hanukkah, you get Christmas, you know.
Wow.
Can't go wrong.
Wow. Okay, and for you, okay, let me ask a couple of questions. Everybody's wondering the same thing right now, right? As you say these things, marrying into a Catholic family. What about the baby Jesus? How is that dealt with at the Quitt house?
It's a good question. We actually do not have baby Jesus here. In fact, we don't really have any religious items in our house. This is actually the first year that we put together a Christmas tree. But I think Monica's been asking for a Christmas tree the moment we got married. So it's been about 4 years.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
What about when you were over at Monica's parents' house? Do mom and dad bring up the baby Jesus? Does dad go, so Jason, what about the baby Jesus?
You know what? They don't do that. They're totally cool with me. And when they do their prayers, it's in another language. I think it's in Polish or Ukrainian. So, I just sit there and copy what they're doing and be very respectful, obviously. And, everybody has their own beliefs and traditions. And it's kind of cool in the family. There's not really like that much at the table except everybody just enjoying each other's company and enjoying the food. Okay,
wait. Okay, so what you're saying is you guys are avoiding the confrontation.
Well, it hasn't been brought up yet.
I know, right?
This year will be special.
Yeah. I mean, and it kind of goes both ways. I mean, you could bring it up too.
Yeah, but if I bring it up, I'm going to bring up the version of the baby Jesus that we're going to talk about tonight.
I've been fascinated with this subject. When I was old enough to understand the different religions around the world, right, and the differences between them. And I was always confused and interested in the two versions of the Bible, which are similar, like probably 80%. 80%, the things cross over and are good. But then there is the obvious. And that's the baby Jesus, right? It's just like, how can I talk about this? How can I talk about this without offending everybody because it's there and nobody else really wants to tell me the truth or tell me really what's going on to get rid of the confusion. Right? It's pretty funny if you think about it.
Well, growing up in a Jewish household, we had cousins that also married into Catholic families. So even growing up, I would go over to my cousins and we would celebrate Christmas. And, they would have the baby Jesus there. They would have the manger scene and all these things set up around the house. And I loved it. It's like my family loved going over to their house for Christmas because it's just an other thing to enjoy time with your family. Regardless of what they believe, we respect it all. We know it's a belief system. We know it. They believe in that. But no one really discussed the tradition to me. It was something I had to kind of learn about later once I started to research this. And it was part of the awakening process as well to learn about shamanism and the world around us. And
I did the very same thing. And left to my own, right, to go and figure all of this stuff out. And then you kind of start to put the pieces together and you figure out that things are not what they seem. And and we're going to start getting into this pretty heavily here in just a second. But there's another part of Christmas for me that I will never let go of. No matter what I find out, no matter what the conspiracies are, no matter what the religions or politics or commercialism get into play. And that is the way that I was brought up with Christmas trees, with Santa Claus, with the holiday movies and the celebration. That to me is what Christmas is. It's whatever the mythology, the folklore, the history, the conspiracy, the paganism, whatever you want to do, the Egyptian history part of this, it's not going to tarnish my memories. And that's where I'm at with this. And before we kick this off, because we've got a lot to discuss tonight, I wanted to do this because speaking of, me personally, I just posted up on social media my top 10 Christmas movies. And I went through this and I put a lot of time into this today. And it may not be what most would think. And not everything is on it. This is my list, okay? And then we're going to go over your list in just a second. And I'm going to do this really quick. My top 10 Christmas movies, starting at number 10, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which is the original version from 1966 with Chuck Jones as the artist. That's amazing. That's my number 10. My number 9 is Trading Places. And that's from 1983. And there's a reason why I'm mentioning these dates. And that's from 1983. The Nightmare Before Christmas, that didn't come out until 1993. But I've watched it so many times, and my kids love the movie, and it's just really cool. So that came in at my number 8. My number 7, It's a Wonderful Life. That's right, the original, 1946. And then my number 6 is Scrooged, 1988, with Bill Murray, and it's absolutely, hands down, one of my favorite Christmas movies. Number 5, Bad Santa, from 2003. Yes, that is one of my all-time favorite Christmas movies. My number 4, and I'm surprised, I think this should have been higher on most people's list, but it's Die Hard from 1988 with Bruce Willis. And then my top 3, my 3, 2, and 1, for me, number 3 is a strange one. Number 3, because it's from 1974, and that's The Year Without Santa Claus, and that's the one with Heat Miser, right? He's Mr. Heat Miser, he's Mr. Sun. Right? And that came out in 1974. Most people think it's older, but it's not. My number 2 is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the original claymation, 1964, and stop animation. And my number 1, A Charlie Brown Christmas, 1965, the original with Charlie Brown. So that's my top 10 Christmas movies. What are yours?
Okay, I'll start with number 10, and actually a couple of them you've already said. So number 10 is not actually a Christmas movie, but Ghostbusters. Always like watching Ghostbusters around these times. My number 9 is Trading Places. It's actually your number 9 too, which I found pretty interesting. I love that movie. Then we got Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Not bad.
Then we have 7, which is Elf.
Not bad.
6, we have Tim and Eric Crimbus Special, and I know many people don't know what that is. I'll just say it's the most ridiculous thing if you could actually get through it. Then you have Plane, Trains, and Automobile, which is classic. And then this gets into like the 90s here where I kind of grew up and watched this stuff, which is Ernest Saves Christmas.
Oh, that's a great one. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
And then the Gremlins. You can't have Christmas without Gremlins. And then we have National Lampoon's Christmas. And my personal number 1 movie that I think I've seen every single Christmas since I was like a child is Scrooged with Bill Murray.
Yep. That's a great list. That's a great list. Can't argue with any of that. And you can see the generational parts of that too as well, the difference between you and I, like Elf, which is a great movie. It's great. It doesn't pull at my heartstrings, like Bad Santa does. I don't know why. But and that's all part of it. See, that's what Christmas is. And when you go back and look into the real history of things, because you and I are both students of history, it's what we are doing constantly. And when you're a true student of history, like we are, you find out stuff every single day that you didn't know. And you get these little paradigm shifts, right? These little things that cause you to go back and go, wow, okay, really? And it doesn't get any bigger than the foundations of what Christmas is about and where all of that came from. And one of the first things I want to start at one single point, and I may be right, I may be wrong here, but is Horus. And I want to start there because most people don't know. They may know Horus as an Egyptian god. That's it. They don't know the real history of Horus. And if you go back and read all of the mythology and the stories that have been handed down and repeated and written for thousands of years, you don't know the real history of Horus. But if we stop and think about the true progenitor of Christmas, does it start with Horus? Because Horus, in the mythology, was born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis Mary.
It's one of the earliest stories that we have that has this creation myth with this December 25th date, but we don't actually know where this originally came from. This story could have come thousands of years even before the story of Horus. So it's a very, very ancient story. But yes, Horus was born of the Virgin Isis. All these amazing things. And it's not just Horus. There is about 30 plus deities from ancient times that have that same birth date of December 25th. And it almost has the exact same story that we know today.
And who are those?
All right. Well, one of them is Mithra. And we have Krishna.
Well, Mithra, let's stay right there. Mithra was also born on December 25th, right?
Born a virgin, father a carpenter, had 12 disciples, performed miracles, died, was resurrected. Same with Krishna, even pre-Christian. The story of Krishna was also the anointed one called the Christ, performed miracles, born of a virgin, born December 25th. These are the same stories given, or the same attributes given to these deities or these stories.
Was Krishna resurrected as well?
Yes. Yes.
And what about Attis?
Attis. I believe it's the exact same story. And these are all basically solar deities that tell the story of this kind of solar creation, or the sons of God. And Attis and Krishna, Mithra, Sol Invictus, and also Jesus, they all follow this same template.
Yeah, Attis, born December 25th, crucified, placed in a tomb. After 3 days, was resurrected. You have Dionysus of Greece. Right now, we're going. We've got India, we've got Persia, right?
Yeah,
and Greece, because Dionysus was also born of a virgin, December 25th. He was known as the King of Kings, the Alpha and the Omega. And the same situation where he was, upon his death, he was also resurrected. But all of these figures around the world from different cultures, different continents, right? You would almost have to be transoceanic to share these. Mm-hmm. But they all seem to have the same origin stories. And you have to go back and try to figure out what was everybody basing, this idea on for each one of these gods and messengers that they revered, right? All December 25th, all had died, most were resurrected, all born of a virgin. Everything is consistent across the board. And before I feel like I'm going to be struck by lightning, right? What was the source of this? What was everybody seeing?
Okay, well, you have to first think about ancient humanity. And before religion, before beliefs, ancient humanity always needed to know where they were in the world. They needed to know about the environment they lived in, the nature of the earth, the cycles, the stars, the harvest, where the animals are going. They needed to know about these ecosystems. And for ancient humans, that knowledge itself was life and death. So the ancient human mind saw themselves as this kind of divine reflection of the laws around them. And this is the basis of gnosis. It's the basis of religion. It's the basis of our traditions. Came all the way back to these ancient minds that started to look at the world around them. And it's from these cycles that they created calendars, archetypes. They learned about the laws that govern themselves. And it was basically like the microcosm of the macrocosm. So basically, what I'll say right now is that the religions and the traditions that we practice today, they really do come out of these cycles of time. And I'll say this again, these cycles of time are encoded in all of our religious texts that we practice today, but it is kind of hidden in an allegory. And we can call this astrotheology. And it's the study of the movement of the stars, where the sun is in the sky, and the different seasons of the solstices and the equinoxes. This is the basis of our religious texts, and this is where all these stories and myths sprout out from, this knowledge.
Well, that would explain the consistency across countries, continents, and cultures. That they were all seeing the same things in the sky, in the stars. And that was the origin of these stories. And leading up to, we'll pick up on with all of this after the break, but it has nothing to do with a manger, right? And three dudes, going across the desert, chasing the Star of Bethlehem to find the location of this birth. It had nothing to do with physical events taking place. It had to do with the stars above. Am I understanding you correctly?
Well, this is the biggest change in perception that we're going to talk about, because it goes from this historical story of a child being born of a virgin in a manger, which is the beginning of Christian religion. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is that scene, that story may just be a story. And I don't want to offend anybody, but when we start talking about this, you're going to start to see what we're trying to say here.
It doesn't change Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for me. It ain't going to do that. It's Frosty the Snowman is still near and dear in my heart. But this is part of looking at history and trying to figure out what is real and what is not. And that's okay. And you and I may be wrong, you may be wrong, we may be right. It doesn't matter. But it's really fun to go and research. And you start to look at all of these names, the gods, the stars, the constellations, the timing of all of this. And it starts to make a lot of sense, doesn't it?
It does. And also remind me closer to the end of the show, why is Rudolph's nose red?
That's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I'm talking about. All right, let's we're going to take a little break right here. All right, welcome back. It's our Fade to Black Merry Quittmas special event with Jason Quitt, live from the great snowy white north of Toronto. And we're going over the foundations of what Christmas is. And it gets into, Jason, it gets into some very, very bizarre things here. And one of them, let's get into now, something that has always confused me is a virgin birth, right? Wait a minute here. And it's been explained to me over the years. I've never understood it. But we have to ask ourselves these basic questions. You know, why the virgin birth on December 25th? Why dead for 3 days? And the inevitable resurrection. Why 12 disciples or followers? And let's start with the virgin birth on December 25th. What are the foundations of that?
Oh, Jimmy, to understand that, you have to look at the story of Christmas from an astrological solar point of perspective. All right. And this is why all these deities are born on December 25th. So I'd have to kind of explain it first so people understand and that we don't get a little off track. But remember, our Earth, all right, we have seasons, and that's caused by the sun going from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. And, summer solstice, June 21st, the sun is the closest it gets to the northern hemisphere. So it's the longest day of sunshine. We have the longest days. It's the warmest. The sun is the strongest. And then from that solstice of June 21st, the sun's strength and position in the sky starts to move south. And it gets weaker and weaker if we looked at it from the northern hemisphere. So from June 21st, the sun gets weaker and weaker and smaller, moving south in the sky. All right. And then on December 21st, you have the winter solstice. And that is when the sun is basically the lowest in the southern hemisphere as possible. So this is why we have the longest day of night on December 21st solstice. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting, Jimmy, is that after December 21st, December 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, the sun remains in the lowest position. It's almost like the sun dies. It doesn't come back into the northern hemisphere. And in ancient times, the sun was actually seen below the horizon. It would not rise the way it usually does for 3 full days. So in ancient times, they would say that the sun is dead. It's the literal death of the sun for 3 days. And then on December 25th, the sun is resurrected again. It's resurrected from the cross of the equator, the cross of the horizon, and the sun then moves back into the northern hemisphere. So they say the sun is born. It's new life. The sun is born again. It's resurrected. And on December 25th, the Son of God, the King of Kings, is born. So we start from that. Now, when we talk about the manger, for example, the manger was also like the symbol in ancient times from Egypt of the ancient mounds. And in the creation story, the sun came up from the ancient mound, and that's what brought life and creation and light into this world. So you have these kind of parallels. Now, another interesting fact with this whole manger story is that Jesus, the baby Jesus, is born, and there's a story about 3 wise men. All right. Could we get into the 3 wise men now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll see. All of this is tied into the same adventure and timing of days, right? So we have the 3 days. We have the resurrection, and then the birth on December 25th. And the virgin part of this, which we're going to get into in just a second, all plays into the same thing. And the 3 wise men have to fit into this story as well. And it all happens at the same time. So with the 3 wise men, what's their origins?
In ancient times, the 3 wise men was known as the 3 stars of the Orion's belt. And that's what it was called in ancient times, was the 3 wise men. Now, there's something very special that happens in the night of December 21st, or the early morning of December 25th. What happens is that Orion's belt points perfectly vertical down facing the earth to the brightest star in the sky, which is Sirius at that time. It's pointing straight down to Sirius, which was actually called the Star of Bethlehem in ancient times. So you remember the 3 wise men followed the Star of Bethlehem to where the sun is being born. Okay, this is very, very important language. So on one night out of the whole year, the only night, December 25th, or the early morning of December 25th, this is the only time where Orion's belt will align perfectly vertical to the Earth's horizon with Sirius star facing the east perfectly. And on that morning, December 25th morning, the sun will rise over the horizon at the exact location of where the star of the east, Sirius, and Orion's belt, the 3 wise men, are pointing directly to the sun rising on December 25th to be born again.
So the 3 wise men, the 3 magi, or the 3 kings, are those 3 stars in Orion's belt, which are directly in line with Sirius, the star of the east, which is the brightest star in the sky. All this happens on December 25th when the sun finally is back and is born. Right?
When the sun finally is resurrected after 3 days of death. Yes. Yes. And what's also interesting is if you look at ancient artwork of the baby Jesus, you'll see that there's a halo around his head, and above his head is the star. And this is showing you the Star of Bethlehem, which is Sirius, and he is the Son. The Son of God is risen again. This is the allegory of these paintings. What's also interesting is that Jesus is born between a horse and a goat. It's kind of weird, right? But the horse and the goat is actually Capricorn and Sagittarius, astrologically speaking. And if you were born on December 25th, your astrological signs would be a cusp of Capricorn and Sagittarius. So you see how there's mixing the understanding of astrology and constellations into these stories, because the sun is born between those two things. Now, another interesting point is when you bring up the virgin birth. Well, the virgin, going back into ancient times, was Virgo, the constellation Virgo, which translates to also virgin. All right.
So at this moment where we've got the three magi, right? Mm-hmm. All following the star, which is what they were doing, heading towards Bethlehem, but it's Orion's belt. But the three kings are following Sirius, the star of Bethlehem, the star in the east. And all of this is to locate Jesus, or the birth of the Son, which is happening on December 25th. Right? Now, all of that makes sense, and you can see where the allegory comes into play here, certainly across cultures. But where is Virgo in the night sky when all of this is taking place?
Remember, the sun is born from the Virgin. Okay, this is an important saying. It's born of the Virgin.
Right.
The equinox of September 22nd is in the sign of Virgo, the Virgin. And this is the time of the year that the sun, or the day and the night, is completely equal. So after September 22nd, this is when the sun descends into the underworld. So this is the coming back up after December 25th. So it's born. The actual sun starts to go below the day, or the nights become longer after September 22nd, Virgo, born a virgin, and then it starts to rise up again after December 25th. And this is how the connection of the Virgin plays into the birth of the sun.
Now, when we look back, we brought up Horus. We talked about Attis and Krishna and Dionysus and Mithra and others, right? There are around 30 of these figures that cross cultures and civilizations. Do each one of these stories, let's just go with that. Does each one of these stories fit the constellations and Sirius and Orion's belt and the Virgin Mary and Virgo? Is this what everybody was seeing?
From what I've been researching, this is exactly it. It's cross-cultural, talking about ancient solar religions. And the reason why the solar religions were so important, again, it was life and death for these ancient people. They needed to know the cycles, when to plant the seeds, when to harvest. It was all tied into these dates. And they knew that they could mark the sky. And this is why you have a lot of stone circles in ancient periods, is they were marking the calendar of the sky so they could know about the precession of the equinoxes and the precession of the solstices, so that all of these things would keep society moving forward, because without that knowledge, they would basically starve to death.
And that's what sun worship actually was, right? It's the sun. Through summer, fall, spring, it doesn't matter. When the sun is up in the sky, there is life, right? And you know that you can exist for another day. You have to get through the night, right? The darkness, and get to the next day where the sun is back and everybody is safe, right? That's the bottom line here.
Yeah, that is actually the most important thing, because we had to explain it in the terms of life and death. And when we look at the sun going to the underground, we had stories back in Egypt of basically Horus and Osiris going into the underworld, battling Set and all these other things. And basically, it was a nightly thing. So the battle of light and dark was won every single morning. When that sun rised again, it was like the beginning of the world. And at night, it was the end of the world. So they struggled to say, will the sun come back up? Because if the sun actually never comes back up, everything will be lost. All life would be lost here. So this is why the sun is the main, I would say the main godhead of worship in ancient times, because it literally kept everybody alive. And this is also where we get the stories and myths of the light versus the dark.
And the one of the crucial things here, because we're looking at our language of today and the word sun, not only with the sun that is at the center of our solar system, but of our children and the pronunciation of it, and that the way that we say sun and the birth of the sun, we are now using that word in relation to Jesus, right? And the son being born on this day. Is there any incorrectness about this with the word son over the years? Or what I'm getting at is, back in ancient times, certainly throughout ancient Egypt and Persia and Asia and around the world and India, was the word that was used for son also used for a male son, your child?
Yeah, and also you have to remember, in the Bible, they actually use the word interchangeably. So sometimes they'll use it S-U-N to explain the Son of God, or they will have it S-O-N. But also you have to remember this: the ancient Bible, like that came from Roman times, was called Heliobiblia. All right. And later, in our language, we call it Holy Bible. So Heliobiblia is the original term for the Holy Bible. And helio is sun, is the word sun. So it's the Sun Bible. That's the actual ancient translation to the book.
And what do we do with the pagan side of all of this? Certainly, we've talked about Egypt and Persia and Greece, and what was going down in Bethlehem and Jerusalem. But what about the pagan side of these rituals? Because we have Stonehenge that is lined up on these very same dates. Is there cross-pollination there too as well?
Well, I would say that the Christmas that we celebrate today is a coming together of traditions from all over the world. Because when people get together, it's kind of like this hybrid tradition that we just kind of all accept. And this is what's happened with Christmas. Because how do you get Santa? How do you get the reindeers? How do you get the tree? How do you get presents from the original story of the manger and baby Jesus? Where is that connection from Christmas to that?
Now, and going back to Horus and the story behind Horus, there is so much of it that is exactly the same as the Jesus story, the baby Jesus story. Now we understand that it's probably astrologically based, right? Which makes a lot of sense. But if Christians or other religions around the world look at the story of Horus and see the similarities, why isn't anybody talking about this and presenting this as the origin for everything? Not only with the stars, but with Horus's story, which goes back 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 years.
Well, you've had guests on the show quite recently that even verified that most of the religions today, especially the Judeo-Christian religion, actually came out of Egyptian stories and religion. And this is, from what I've researched, is completely accurate. And this is why, I'll just say this is from my own experience, is, growing up Jewish, we have Passover. And, if in Christianity, Passover is the Last Supper of Jesus. It's the same holiday. And in Passover, we read a book that basically tells you how evil Egypt is, and that we never should research Egypt. We should never look into Egypt because it was evil. We were slaves and we got out of there. And basically, in Judeo-Christian religion, it's kind of naughty, Christmas terms. It's kind of naughty to actually look back into ancient Egyptian anything.
Now, okay. And before we hit this next break, the 12 disciples or followers, where did this come from?
It's the 12 constellations.
No.
Yes. In fact, in ancient artwork with Mithra, in ancient artwork with Jesus, he's usually in the center of the zodiac with the 12 disciples around him, which are sometimes they're the animals of the constellations, sometimes they are people. And even the Last Supper of Jesus, the painting from Leonardo da Vinci, shows the 12 disciples and the Son of God, Jesus, in the center, again, of the constellations, going around the procession of the equinox.
Now, for some, is this heresy? Right? Is this blasphemous? Is this just going down the wrong road?
Probably 100%. But, I mean, it doesn't negate the fact that these astronomical alignments and these stories go beyond Christianity and was there before Christianity, and it will be there after Christianity.
It's just the way that it is, and that's, we have to look at it that way. And there isn't any other way to do it. And so with that, let's take another break right here. This is Fade to Black. Tonight is our Merry Quittmas special event. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Santa Claus. Here we go. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight is our Merry Quittmas special event with Jason Quitt live from the Great White North of Toronto. And Jason, this is all great, and I know for a lot of folks out there, it's truly a revelation, and they hear this kind of stuff and they go, well, it can't be, and that's what's great. It's knowledge. Go and research it, and see what you find out on your own. And I think that's the funnest part about doing a show like this.
Yes, and it's not actually to negate the Bible at all. It's actually showing that there's an incredible amount of wealth and knowledge in that text. There's a huge amount of knowledge there.
I couldn't agree with you more. And now let's shift gears a little bit. Let's get into Santa Claus. Now, I remember. What I'm about to say. Everybody has gone through the exact same thing. I'm not discovering anything here. But I remember when I was first told that Santa Claus wasn't real, I was crushed. I used to look at our fireplaces, right, with the stockings hanging on it, and would just sit and wonder how Santa Claus got down the chimney and into our living room, how he would do all of this in one night, how he would go all around the world. And I would think about this at the age of 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. And I was okay with it. I questioned it, but I was cool with it too at the same time. And did you go through the same things as a kid?
No, because growing up, we always knew that Santa wasn't real, just imaginary. But I also love going to get pictures taken with the mall Santa. I love doing that, and I loved receiving presents. So for me, I didn't really think deep at all about Santa Claus. I just always knew it was a guy with a fake beard or a real beard, but not real.
Are you suggesting that you were going around at the age of 5 to all of your 5-year-old friends and going, Santa's not real?
Of course I was.
Oh, no. You were breaking hearts?
I was always, you want to know what reality is? You're not in it. That Santa Claus is not real, buddy.
Man, I remember, and Rita's going to have to remind me of this. I don't know which one of our daughters told the other one first. I do remember one of them. Rita, you need to remind me. One of them came running into the living room going, so-and-so just said Santa wasn't real. And I'm talking about a broken heart. It was a harsh day for us to go through as parents. And I knew what was going to happen. The living vicariously through our kids, living through Christmas and the stockings and the trees and the presents and all of that was one of the funnest times for me as a parent, going through that and then having to address the Santa is indeed not real conversation with our kids. It was heartbreaking to go through.
I don't know why they do that, because it is heartbreaking, and it's almost like a loss when you find out something is not real. It's like you've been lied to. I don't think that's fair to a child.
Oh,
the child
I do.
should know.
Oh, I think it's totally fair. Absolutely, I do. And let me tell you why. Because I enjoyed that magic. I did. I enjoyed it. Finding out that Santa wasn't real, although I was crushed, it doesn't negate all those warm Christmases that I had before that. And I wanted to make sure that I instilled in my children, and I did, that very same magic. And that one day I would have to have the Santa is not real conversation. But that's okay, because it's such a warm part of my childhood. And I think that most would agree with me. Humbug, Jason Quittmas.
What I'm saying is that yes, the tradition of Christmas is absolutely magical, and absolutely you should spend it with the children and go through that. But, to then go through the loss of saying that it's not real, I mean, why have that aspect in it at all?
I know. It's part of growing up. I agree. And I would say that for the most part, it's not going to change. I think these traditions are so strong, and they're fun.
Oh yeah.
They are fun. There's nothing cooler than going through a toy store or anything in the middle of summer and having to say to your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old, your 4, okay, put it on your Christmas list and maybe Santa will bring it to you, and yeah. Keeping your children in line. So there you go. That's my take, and I'm sticking to it. Now let's get to Santa Claus, known as Father Christmas, Saint Nicholas, Saint Nick, Kris Kringle, or simply Santa. The origins of all of this. What have you found out? I've got my side of the story that I'll reveal.
Okay. So we've been talking some pretty crazy things that a lot of people haven't heard yet. So now we're really going to go off the deep end. Okay. So everybody bear with me on these. Just bear with me. Anyways, Santa Claus is supposedly based off of Saint Nicholas, who was a saint in what is modern day Turkey. But he didn't dress like Santa Claus. He's just known as being very joyous and generous and happy and very charitable. That's what Saint Nicholas is known for. But I think the true story of Santa Claus and the Santa Claus that we're accustomed to, the vision and the depiction of Santa Claus, is from the North Pole. And these ideas actually come from northern shamanic traditions of tribes that lived and populated around Siberia, which is Russia, and northern Europe.
No. Okay, keep going. Yeah. Keep going. I need to start taking some notes.
Because remember what I said is that, like, as we start to merge traditions, we get these overlays, this hybrid tradition from different cultures that are coming together. And many people in North America and in Europe, they came from Europe. They came from Europe. They brought those traditions from different places like Germany and Poland, Britain. They came with these stories or these traditions. So if you look at the shamans from Siberia, they actually dressed in the same garb as what Santa Claus wears, that red type of uniform.
I looked at the oldest picture of Saint Nick that I could find, and he was dressed in red and white, and he also had a little gray beard going on too as well. No, I'm being serious. Now, but he was also skinny, right? He's not the jolly, rotund Saint Nick that we know today. But you can look at it and you could see the foundations of where the imagery would come for Father Christmas today, because it was red and white, and he did have a very definite white beard.
And I want you to remember those colors, red and white.
You're going
right?
to, okay.
Okay, so not only did those shamans wear similar clothing, but they also herded and worked with reindeer.
Now, okay, hold on for a second. Did you say this Saint Nick was from Turkey?
Yes.
He was from Turkey. Okay.
Yeah, saint from Turkey.
Okay.
But that was before Turkey, obviously. So Armenia.
Okay. Oh, there's another twist, because this was 4th century, right? We're talking 16, 17, maybe 1800 years ago.
Yes, this was pre-Turkey.
Well, that's very interesting. Rita just leaned forward and went, I didn't know that. And then she's going to wrap this up with everything started in Armenia, including Santa Claus. But I didn't know this.
Okay. And let me just describe a little bit of what shamanism is, because it's also part of my background. And shamanism is a way of life that looks at nature as part of oneself. And the shaman uses nature through rituals and techniques to discover the God within,
right, and
the unbreakable connection to the universe around them. So that's what a shaman is, basically. And okay, so now we're going to get into other symbology, which is the trees. Why the trees, and why presents under the trees? Where do we get this tradition of a tree and presents?
Where do we get the tradition of the tree and presents, Jason?
Okay. Well, these shamans would send their children out into the woods to look under coniferous trees for presents. And what are these presents? What grows under these trees is a type of mushroom that is red and white.
Shut up.
and it's called the Amentia muscara, or the fly agate. And every single person listening knows what I'm talking about, because this mushroom is featured in almost all your Christmas cards.
That's right.
And in all the fairy tale pictures. They always place these mushrooms. It's a bright red cap mushroom, and it has these kind of like white horns or spots on the top of it.
I always thought it was just festive looking and that it was artistic license. But this is all found. This is part of nature. This actually happened.
It actually happens, and this is where you find these mushrooms, because these mushrooms have a symbiotic relationship to these coniferous trees, like pine trees. So they need the root system of pines to actually grow. And another thing, I'll just say it. What a mushroom is actually the sex organ of mycelium, which is under the ground. So you're basically looking at the sex. A mushroom is the sex organ of the mushroom.
So the traditional Christmas colors, right? The capitalistic, right? The Christmas cards, the colors, the houses, the lights, the red and white everywhere, is because of mushrooms that were found under pine trees in Siberia.
It's not just Siberia, it's the northern hemisphere.
Right.
So you could even find it here in Canada and obviously in the US. And another amazing point is these mushrooms are a delicacy for reindeers.
We're gonna get to the reindeer in a second. This is fascinating, and the how do I say this? The cross pollination of Santa Claus, or modern Santa Claus, which all of it came from the tradition surrounding the historical Saint Nick, right, from Armenia. That went over to the British figure of Father Christmas, and then we have the Dutch version, which is Sinterklaas, based directly on Saint Nicholas himself. The Father Christmas, the British version, dates as far back as the 16th century in England during the reign of King Henry VIII. And back then he was pictured as, this is where the change came. He started to become big, a little bit overweight, well fed, but he was dressed in green. Why was that version of Saint Nick, Father Christmas, Santa Claus, why was he dressed in green?
It might be to represent the evergreen, which is the promise for everlasting life. Now, and I'll just stick with this thought right here. If you're looking into symbols, the symbols of eternal life, it's all over ancient times. Even back in Samaria, you would have the tree of life, which was the symbol of eternal life. And even in Samaria, you see these guys with holding pine cones, and they had these water vessels. And these are ancient symbols of fertility and everlasting life. Because the reason why these trees were so important, not only did they have these presents and these things growing symbiotically with these trees, but these trees survive all the seasons, where all the other trees have like a life and a death where the leaves fall off.
Right.
This tree survives everything. So it was given the symbol of eternal life. And even in Christianity, if you look at the Pope's staff, if you look at the statues and even the paintings at the Vatican, there is lots of pine cones depicted in these scenes at the Vatican. And many people believe, they talk about the pine cone as the third eye, which is possible. But it's also a symbol of eternal life. It's a symbol of this tree of life, which is this color green. And this is why we have green, red, and white.
And what about some of these other traditions that started back then when all of this was kicking off? We're talking hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And it was the aspect for children, you have a choice, naughty or nice, right? And somebody out there, and I always related this back to God, right? God knows everything. He knows when you've been good. He knows when you've been bad. He's always taking notes. He knows everything. There's nothing you can't do where you're not going to get caught. So you got to behave. This same thing spilled over into Christmas with children, and you have a choice to be naughty or nice. And was this put into place to, just like the masses, right, with the rest of the world, to keep your children in order, right? When did these traditions start?
I don't know exactly the time that they started, but it is kind of, in a sense, programming for the future, I would say. Play by the rules or you're not going to get benefits. But then when you get into the European northern hemisphere of these traditions, then you start getting these other strange things like Krampus. If you're naughty, Krampus is going to come and take you, which is a pretty frightening thing to tell your children, right?
Well, there was another, which is Schmaltzli. Schmaltzli was Santa Claus's assistant in the Swiss German region of Europe. And he was the number one elf, right? Schmaltzli. And this cat would carry a twig broom with him to spank the naughty children with. And the depictions of this is entrenched Christmas tradition, and the threat of Schmaltzli smacking your kids around with a broom. And this goes back again to the 16th, 15th century, Jason.
Do you know what that translates to?
What's that?
Fat.
Schmaltzli
translates to fatty.
Oh man! And this is what else? This is very fascinating. That Santa Claus in this region during this time period was called Sandwich Claus. Sandwich, like sandwich. Yeah. Sandwich Claus. Santa Claus wasn't used officially for the first time until 1773. That's the earliest I can find any references to it in the American press. But 1773 was the first use of Santa Claus here in the United States.
Wow. And again, it's like, does everything stem from the story of the manger and baby Jesus, or does it stem from St. Nicholas, or is it a combination of all these other traditions that came from Northern Europe plus the culture that came out of came out of the ancient world?
I wanted to ask you. You spent a lot of time in the Far East and specifically Japan. Do they celebrate Christmas? Do they have Santa Claus in Japan?
Oh, they love it. And the thing that I love about Japanese Christmas, which I have been a couple times, is it's very much based on the traditions of the German version of Christmas. So it's like a very German Christmas, and they have these like pop-up beer. So it's like you go out in the middle of the park, and they have these literally like beer markets with the traditional German beer and pretzels. It's crazy like that. But yes, they have Santa. They love Christmas.
Let's take our break right here, and I'm going to keep our tradition going. Check this tune out. right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Man, I just have to say this. Christmas songs, the chord changes that are there. It works with heavy metal, doesn't it, Jason? It just works. It fits.
Absolutely. Why not?
It fits, man. It fits. It's so cool. Man. Okay. All right. And all of these selections I'm playing tonight are from Twisted Sister's Christmas album. And it's now a classic today, but you can go and check out everything over on YouTube. It's all over the place. Just so good. So good. The version of "O Come All Ye Faithful" and the way that they do it, "We're Not Gonna Take It," right? Their hit. It fits. It's just so good. All right, I'm just so heavy metaled out right now. Back to Santa Claus. Okay, so this is when you dive into the history of Santa Claus, and you find out, these things like Samich Claus, and somebody just posted that I'm just making stuff up now. I'm not. Schmaltzly is real. I mean, and you brought up Krampus, which is something I want to actually discuss a little bit further. Most don't know what Krampus is all about, and we can get back into that. But I mentioned right before the break that Santa Claus was first used in the American press back in 1773. Santa Claus, like the correct version of it, was found in Washington Irving's History of New York in 1809. And again, I'm researching this over the last week, which I haven't spent a lot of time with this in the past, but I had always thought that it was Santa Claus was a product of commercialization. Right, that it was part of that. And I thought it was a much more modern. I knew about Saint Nick and things, but as far as Santa Claus and everything behind that, I was thinking this was something more modern. Macy's and department stores and a way to commercialize Christmas. And as it turns out, I am just completely wrong. Going back to 1809, and then in 1821. The book, A New Year's Present to Little Ones from 5 to 12, that's the title of the book, was published in New York in 1821. And it contained Old Santa Claus with Much Delight, which was an anonymous poem describing Santa Claus on a reindeer sleigh bringing presents to children. And that is going back to 1821. And then 2 years later, check this out. 2 years later, this is where we're going to get into the reindeer. A Night Before Christmas was published in Troy, New York, in their newspaper called The Sentinel. And that was on December 23rd in 1823. To the day, right? Today is December 23rd. In this, the reindeer were named Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Dunder, and Blixen with a B. Dunder and Blixen came from the Old Dutch words for thunder and lightning, and they were changed later to the more German-sounding Donner and Blitzen. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
It's very good. And like I said, is it commercial? I think it's been commercialized. But I think that there is a very hidden meaning, a very deep meaning to all these stories. It's not just random. And when you're talking about Krampus, in ancient times, even up to modern times, even when they were coming over in the ships from overseas to North America, there was an epidemic of children going missing. I don't know if you've ever looked into that.
Oh man. Okay, Debbie Downer. Okay, let's go on our Quittmas special.
All right. So what I'm saying is that if you read these ancient texts or if you read these ancient news reporting, some of them actually say that a lot of these children go missing and they're actually blaming fairies, right?
Right.
So a lot of these cases, or where you even hear these stories of changelings, of these, these enchanted children coming back and replacing the real children, like many people really believed in this. In their traditions and where they grew up, especially in Northern Europe. And again, when we're saying these children used to go out into the forests to find these presents under these trees, some of them, it was a rare occurrence, but some of those children never returned back home. So there was this kind of this is where I personally believe this tradition of Krampus started, was when these children would go out into the woods, just like Red Riding Hood, Red again. They're going out into the wood to face danger. And if they're naughty or nice, that's just kind of a way of saying, well, that child was kind of taken by Krampus because it was naughty. But I'm thinking with my conspiracy brain, and we've actually talked about this before with the whole missing 911, is that it's very possible that people can easily disappear in these forests. And I think that the beginning of these stories with Krampus started out with those disappearances of children who would go out into these forests.
Now, I was always confused about this when I was a kid, and I need this part of our history cleared up. We've got 8 reindeer identified and named in 1823, right? Mm-hmm. But Rudolph is number 9. Now, our history has never gone back and been corrected here that there were 9 reindeer. It's always 8, always 8, always 8. Rudolph comes along and it's number 9. Where did Rudolph come from?
Well, I have a theory about Rudolph. And I'll say it's my theory because I haven't really read this. But I told you before that reindeers have a delicacy under these trees, which is these red mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say Rudolph is the reindeer that ate the most mushrooms, and his nose is red.
Is that? Wait a minute. I don't remember that from the Christmas special.
I don't think it would be in the Christmas special. But let me describe a little here, and I'll go full in, if you'll allow me. But basically, in these shamanic traditions of Siberia, the Siberian shamans, what they would do is they would allow these reindeer to go out and forage underneath these trees and just basically gorge themselves on these red and white mushrooms. And then what these shamans would do is collect the urine from these reindeer, because there is an alchemical process that happens in the digestion through the liver of the reindeer, which takes out the toxins, the poisons out of the mushroom, and it decarboxylates these special psychoactive elements in these mushrooms. And these shamans would do rituals and drink the urine. And when they would drink the urine, they would have out-of-body experiences and they would travel to the upper world. So when I hear that story, what do I think of in my mind? I think of Santa flying magically in the sky with his reindeers. That's what I think when I hear those stories. It's like a shamanic story. And another very interesting thing.
Well, how can you tell that story to a 4-year-old?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
Who's good? This is late night radio, Jimmy. I'm telling it to grown-up adults.
Can you imagine if that was in the original 1964 stop animation Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoon on TV?
Well, we would have a completely different society. I know that.
I mean, I had a hard enough time dealing with an elf that wanted to be a dentist. Right? that was hard enough for me to deal with. But if it was taking this shamanic twist, I find that very interesting. Somebody just posted up in Twitter that Rudolph was a Montgomery Ward creation, right? So I should have done this earlier, but I just, Wikipedia'd this, and there it is right there. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, fictional reindeer, created by Robert Louis May. Rudolph is usually depicted as the ninth and youngest of Santa Claus's reindeer, using his luminous red nose to lead the reindeer team and guide Santa's sleigh on Christmas Eve. Rudolph first appeared in a 1939 booklet written by Robert May and published by Montgomery Ward, the department store. So we had to wait all the way to Rudolph to get to the commercialization of Christmas, which, you know what, I feel a lot better that Kris Kringle was left out of the play, and it didn't happen until Rudolph in 1939.
Like I said, we have all these different elements building this hybrid traditional story of many cultures coming together. And I believe it will change over time. And what we see now, we may not see 50 years from now. So, it will always shift and change is what I believe.
Did you know there was Leroy, the redneck reindeer?
No, but now I can't stop trying to visualize what that would look like.
Now, let's go to the North Pole. And that is, you mentioned this earlier, coming out of traditions from Siberia and the northern part of Asia. And the original text that I could find was Santa Claus Living at the North Pole was from Thomas Nast publication. His Christmas image in the Harper's issue of Harper, dated December 29th, 1866, was a collage of engravings titled Santa Claus and His Works, which included the caption, Santa Clausville, North Pole. And that's the first I could find it in American literature. The first references to the North Pole, what did you find?
Well, it goes hand in hand with the adventurers of that time. It's like that was in the news constantly of people trying to go to the North Pole. It was like the last frontier. So you'd have explorers going to the North Pole, and it was very exciting. There was a lot of newspaper articles about this. So if someone is bringing that kind of storyline into it, we already have the vision of Christmas being a snowy winter place. And because of the hype around these adventurers seeking out the North Pole, I think it would be a perfect match at that time period for them to incorporate that in some type of mythology. Now,
the other part, which is Mrs. Claus, I find this very strange that Santa was single, right? That going back to Saint Nicholas, all the way up to modern history, there was never a Mrs. Claus, and I find that part very, very, very interesting, because you would think that Santa would have always had a Mrs. Claus, that there was a Mrs. Claus a part of this. And I want to get to the elves as well. But Mrs. Claus is another creation that surfaced in 1889 by poet Catherine Lee Bates. And she called out Mrs. Claus in the poem, and I'm not making this up. The poem was titled Goody Santa Claus on a Sleigh Ride.
So wholesome.
Yeah, you can read into that what you want. You can read into that what you want, but that was the first thing. And this is what I really love about the internet, is that searching out this kind of information and Googling these questions, right? The origin of Mrs. Claus. When did Mrs. Claus first appear in literature? You know, and you go and you can search this knowledge now. The knowledge of everything is at our fingertips. And now we can find out the origin stories of everything, from Mrs. Claus to Santa Claus to the reindeer, all the way back to Christmas and the baby Jesus. Is this going to be the ungluing, right, of Christmas traditions when these things are easily accessible by everybody? And I'm talking about children as well.
I think the age of information is here, and someone who knows the right questions to ask and what to search for will definitely come and find these different stories throughout history. Absolutely.
Now, what about elves? When did they come into the mix?
Okay, so let's just say that elves. Well, just look traditionally right now. What are elves' jobs? An elf's job is to prepare the presents, right? They're Santa's workers. They're preparing the presents for the children. So I'll just go back into the shamanic knowledge of this, is that the elves are part of the other world, and their job is to make sure that everything that we have, as in like the trees, the plants, the flowers, the fruit, everything follows the perfect cycle. So their job is to keep everything moving for the world, you know, so that we could have these presents, we could have these things. Now, I'll take it a little step further with the whole shamanic thing and plant medicines, is if you read into the culture right now of people doing plant medicines, we're talking about like psychedelics, DMT, psilocybins, different things like this. They come in contact with an intelligence in these out-of-body states. And the way that it's described in our time period is the machine elves. Have you ever heard those terms?
No, I have not.
Now you've surprised me, Jimmy.
Well, I'm a little distracted. Mark Toronto over in Australia just tweeted out, I'm sure you just saw this a minute ago. So Santa is actually a figment of the imagination conjured by drinking shroom-infused reindeer pee.
This is what you've got, what you've received from this radio show tonight.
Oh my word! Have you seen? Okay. I'm just going to let everybody know this last segment. When we come back after the break, I'm going to open up the phone lines. I meant to do this earlier, but I'm going to open up the phone lines to all of you, 747-228-2051, and we'll take your Merry Quittmas phone calls. Jason, have you seen the new series on Netflix called The Witcher?
Unfortunately, I haven't been watching TV over the past couple of months, so I haven't, unfortunately.
Okay, you need to, I'm just going to say this to everybody, certainly through this holiday season. Check out the new series, The Witcher. And there's a lot of reasons to watch it. First off, cinematically, the impact is just as incredible as Game of Thrones, and that's pretty lofty for me to say something like this, but it is certainly up there with that kind of production. But the other reason to watch it is the storyline, completely original and very, very cool. But dealing with magic and magi like they do in The Witcher is one thing, but there's another element of this which is different than anything else that I've seen, and you just spoke about this, which are the elves. And this is what reminded me of the Witchers. The way that they deal with elves here is much like you are describing to us, and you have not seen the TV series. And I think that elves, although we talk about fairy tales today and folklore when it comes to elves, that I think that there's something much stronger behind the storytelling of what elves are, and that they quite possibly could be an ancient race that existed on this planet.
Yes, and people that have experienced these beings, they're highly connected to nature. They're like a nature spirit, an elemental, and you have to treat them very well with respect, or else they could be dangerous towards you. But they're there to make sure that the harvest is ready. They're there to make sure that plants bloom in the right time. So it's almost like you have this intelligence behind nature, which we will call the elves, that make sure all the presents are ready for Santa to give to the children.
We need to take another break. We're going to do this here, and when we come back after the break, of course, I will open up the phone lines, and let's take some phone calls from the Fadernauts. And this will be, by the way, tonight is our last broadcast of 2019, and everything after tonight will be replays because we're going to go celebrate Christmas, and we won't be back with another live broadcast until 2020. So it'll be the last opportunity to hear from all of you, and it's pretty cool that we'll do it on Christmas with our Merry Quittmas, a special event. And with that, let's go to the next tune. All right, welcome back. It's our Merry Quittmas special with Jason Quitt, live from Canada. Great conversation tonight. The history of Christmas, the foundation, the progenitor of everything was gone through tonight. And like you said it well, Jason. We're not here to break hearts. Just here to lay it out there. Let's put the stuff out. You guys go and do your own research and see what falls from the tree. That's all you got to do, right?
Oh, yeah. Deep dive into Christmas. It's quite a journey.
I remember when I first started finding out this stuff, and it was about, it was almost 20 years ago now. And I started to go piece by piece, right? And look into this. I was like, oh, this is just nuts. This is going to shake up everything. And I'm going to say that there are hundreds of millions of people around this planet right now that have the same knowledge of what we laid out tonight. And people have gone and looked into this. And you know what? The sun still came up. No pun intended. Right? It wasn't earth-shattering to people. I think that they just understand that there's origins to everything, but it doesn't change where we are today. And civilization didn't collapse, did it?
Absolutely not. I mean, I celebrate Christmas. I love Christmas. I'm so hyped about this. This knowledge or this information that I've gathered, it's only enhanced my love of Christmas.
Absolutely. And with that, you want to take some phone calls?
Absolutely.
All right. Everybody, turn your radio down. Here we go. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. It's Sandy in Dallas.
Hi, Sandy. How are you? Merry Quittmas. Say hi to Jason.
Merry rockin' Quittmas. Jason.
Merry Quittmas back to you.
That Twisted Sister is awesome.
Isn't it cool? Isn't it?
It is.
I mean, it is beyond cool. And thank you for that. This show, Sandy, is about all things fun and the things that I enjoy. And Jason and I are both musicians, and we love talking about music and stuff. And before the show, I played him, the tracks that I was going to use tonight, and we did nothing but laugh. It's just so cool.
And what year did that come out.
Geez. I've been listening to him. It's probably 20 years old.
All right, because Dee's voice still recognizable.
Yeah. I've seen some live versions of these cuts that are very recent. 5 years, 10 years old, and his voice is still there. He's one of the great singers in the history of rock and roll. That and the entire band is really great, but that doesn't get. They don't speak about Dee Snider as often as they speak about, say, Ronnie James Dio or Robert Plant or Rob Halford or Jeff Tate. They don't. Dee's not in that conversation, and he should be for sure.
Well, he took it to the Congress that one day.
Well, and you know what? Let me say this about Dee Snider: if there's one thing that came out about that guy over the years, down to earth, cool, honest, and a real human being. I just think his personality is just extraordinarily
and just
cool.
The love for the music.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So what are you doing?
Hey, Jason, I gotta thank you for coming on the show. I'm very overwhelmed but interested. I got a comment. You were talking before the break about elves.
Yes.
Now, can we go a little further with the fairy thing? Because Tooth Fairy was always so cool to me.
Okay.
Because something I produced made money.
And you sure it wasn't your parents?
Well, when I was tiny, and I still believed.
Yes.
I loved it.
Yeah, I wanted to pull out my own teeth to make a couple of bucks.
Well, when we are talking about fairies in the fairy worlds, there are different fairies. They have different personalities, and they would like different things. And many people in ancient times would actually make offerings to the fairy world in exchange for gifts. So let's just be simple and say you give candy or liquor or something to the fairy world in hopes that your crops grow better. So basically you're giving incentive to the fairies to do something good for you. And offering a tooth, I don't know exactly where that started. To me it sounds quite frightening, actually. But to offer up a tooth that's a very important piece of who you are to the fairy in exchange for some type of good. So it might just be that tradition of learning how to give to the fairy world to receive a gift.
And you know what? There's another part to this, though. That by Sandy bringing this up, I don't know if she realizes, but we would do the same thing as children, leaving out milk and cookies for Santa. Is that bribery? Right? You know what I mean? Is that to make sure that you were going to get the gifts that by rewarding Santa? You didn't want to leave Santa bad chocolate chip cookies, right? You had to leave him good ones, and then when you got up and they were gone and they were eaten, you felt as a kid that the trade-off, the counter offer in the deal was completed because Santa ate the cookies. Kind of the same trade-off like you were doing with your tooth with the fairies, you're doing with the milk and cookies and Santa. It's almost the same story, isn't it?
It's also the same story in Judaism, where on Passover you leave a glass of wine for Eliyahu, and it's the offering to bring this imaginary force, this being into your dinner party, and allow him to offer this wine. So it's deep in our traditions to give offerings to this spirit world of the fairies and elves.
Yeah, the story's much deeper than we think. It's milk and cookies, but there's something more to it. Sandy, thank you so much for the phone call, and enjoy your Christmas holiday.
You guys too. You guys too. Appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Merry Quittmas.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's kind of funny when she brings it up, and then you start to think about the parallels that are there with Santa Claus, and it seems all harmless, right? It's milk and cookies, but there's something much deeper in the meaning, isn't it?
I really believe so, and it goes back to this whole offering to the spirit world so that you will be blessed in the fruit of the world, basically.
I had said before the break, Rita came running in the bunker. We've got one more show before the end of the year, and it's with Billy Carson next Monday. You made a mistake. And I did. I mentioned it earlier when we opened up the show. But, yes, we'll be back on Monday, a week from today, December 30th, with Billy Carson. And let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. It's Deb from Sacramento.
Merry Quittmas.
Merry Quittmas. Hi, Jason.
Hi, how are you doing?
Terrific. You know, it's funny because I was raised, in a Christian church with the traditions of, the Jesus story and, his birth and all the religious significance. But I really like, I don't want to call it an interpretation, but the knowledge that you presented about how it's related to astrology. And I like it because it really makes sense.
Thank you.
I think it's something that should be taught, actually, in addition to, the Bible story. But I did have a question for you.
Sure.
Is there any significance, in your opinion, to the kings of the Orient bringing gifts to Jesus?
Well, yeah, you know what? And I was going to ask you about this earlier, Jason, which is the parts of it which, frankincense and myrrh or silver and the different things that were brought in. It was frankincense, myrrh, and gold, right?
Yes.
And what was the third?
It was frankincense, myrrh, and gold.
Those were the three. Okay,
yes.
So one of the wise men had frankincense, one of them had myrrh, and the other one had gold.
Yes, and there is some confusion. Many people or many scholars, they don't really know if it was actual gold or it was the manna that they talked about in ancient times. But remember, what is frankincense and myrrh? Frankincense and myrrh is holy incense that was burned in the temples, especially in Egypt with frankincense and myrrh. They would use myrrh in embalming. They would burn frankincense in the temples to uplift the spirits. And they also come from these resinous coniferous trees. So then it goes back to this whole connection with trees, the tree of light. And the gold is knowledge. The gold is the sun, the symbol of the sun. So there's all this symbology wrapped into these gifts that are given by these trees and by the sun.
I was told when I was very, very young, when I brought that up, why incense? Gold, why not diamonds or something else? And I was told very young that frankincense and myrrh were more valuable than gold and traded that way too as well. These were very, very prized possessions that were traded.
Oh, it was even in the tombs of the Egyptian pharaohs. It was they actually had more frankincense and myrrh than gold.
Right.
So it was extremely important, and it was used in rituals. It was used in basically, I want to say, out-of-body experiences and clearing space. So frankincense and myrrh have always been wrapped into spiritual experience.
And and Deb, are you guys doing anything special for Christmas?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to my family's house tomorrow night for Christmas Eve and then to another family thing on Christmas Day.
Okay.
But I'm not taking any gold, frankincense, and myrrh. I'm taking lasagna.
Rita just tweeted out she's on a campaign to get you on Twitter.
Oh. Okay, well, I will look into it over the holiday and try to get signed up on it.
Yeah, quit playing around. Okay, quit goofing off.
All right. Well, Rita's the boss, so now I've got to follow up.
There you go. I just
I'll
saw it on Twitter.
Keep listening.
Yeah, she just texted me right now too as well. So I did my part.
Very good.
Have a great
Merry Christmas, you guys.
Merry Quittmas, Deb.
Merry Quittmas.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Teppy.
Go back, Teppy. Thank you so much. Let me juggle some stuff around here. I've got some people on hold, but somebody just called in that I'm going to bring in first, and I'm going to try to squeeze all of this in. I've only got 5 minutes left because I got one more song I'm going to play too as well. And I like playing late night DJ. I've always wanted to do that too, to be the late night DJ dude. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hello, gentlemen. Merry Quittmas to you all.
Hey, Eric. How are you?
Merry Quittmas,
Eric.
Eric.
It's been a great show. I just want to thank you for having Jason on again. But, I mean, I got to say, I don't think there's a guest that you have on that brings more knowledge and, education and more research material than Jason. And I'm not just saying that because he's my friend. So I just think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, right on. We appreciate that, Eric. And thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Do you have a question for Jason?
I do have a question for Jason. So I've been waiting all night for the Yahweh as a biblical God as an alien part, and we didn't get there, so I figured I'll call in. So I'll just call it a theory that Jason has, but it doesn't really sound like a theory. I mean, the dots do add up, so I haven't done the research, but let's just go with Jason's theory on this. How does the idea of the alien God and Jesus being, like a hybrid implant, I mean, does that fit into this whole story anywhere, Jason?
When it comes to the astrotheology aspect of it, no, it does not. It does not fit into this type of story. But
does that disappoint you?
No, because my theory of these things have changed over time, and I believe that there are interdimensional higher intelligence beings that can actually speak through people or incarnate through certain individuals that will bring information and knowledge to this world.
Okay.
Yeah,
so these gods, the top 10 gods, for example, these could have been, non-human entities. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, let me just start off from I'll make it really, really fast, okay?
Okay.
When the first humans came, and this is just my opinion, obviously, when the first humans came and started to learn things, they're learning the laws of nature. So it's all universal laws. They came up with this thing. There's one source of creation, and through that source, they divided it up into 72 archetypes or 72 deities that would hold each an individual law, personality, and identity. And then as people would, let's say, have spiritual experiences, they would experience an archetype, they would experience these universal laws, which would be kind of like embodying these higher consciousnesses or deities. As time went on, I truly believe that people started to connect with these different archetypes and gods, and different interdimensional beings did speak to people. So I don't have the answer yet is the final answer. I don't have the answer, but I think that there is a type of interaction between non-physical intelligence and humans growing in this world.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
There you go, Eric.
Okay, guys.
And have a great,
see you guys in a few days.
Absolutely. And have a great, safe,
buddy.
Merry Quittmas.
Merry Quittmas. Thank you.
Right. Go back with Debbie.
Right on, Eric. And we'll see Eric this Thursday at the Rainbow Bar and Grill right there in Hollywood. And I do want to remind everybody, that's going down December 26th on Thursday in a couple of days, the day after Christmas. And you can go to our Facebook page for that event and RSVP right there. I've got time for one last quick phone call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Oh, my God. Another last phone call?
There
for
you
me.
go. There you go, Fran. Merry Quittmas.
Yeah, no kidding. I so love watching or listening to all of this. I was enthralled, just going, oh my God. Everything he said was making sense to me.
Are you okay with it?
Yes.
Yeah. It's not that big of it.
for sure.
It's really not that big of a deal. But
No, it's not.
right.
To me, it was easy.
Yeah, the whole Orion's belt, the three kings, the Star of Bethlehem being Sirius, the East Star, the star in the east, the Virgo constellation, which is Virgin, the sun rising on December 25th. All of this, it fits not only from the astrological side of things, but it fits the stories that have been there for thousands of years with every civilization, every continent on this planet. And it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. We don't have to freak
And
out here.
Every time I hear this, I just go, yeah, oh right, I'm good.
Do you have a question, Fran?
I disagree.
Do you have a question for Jason real quick?
How did he get so smart?
I ask him that all the time.
When I started to go through my awakening in my early 20s, this was pre-YouTube. So most of the information I got, I actually ordered books and got books right from the library. And even today, I think I have like 300, 400, 500 books. I don't even know how much I have. And I've read pretty much all of them. And that's what really helped me through my awakening process. A lot of like esoteric stuff, you name it, it's in the library.
I totally get that. When I was a little kid, my home away from home was the library. I grabbed every book that I could read on anything. And I just went, oh. So
I still do that.
when you guys
I do that today,
talk
Fran.
about it, sure.
Rita and I went to a library 2 months ago, and we had to do it because of a government situation. Okay, it's just a long story, but it's a community center, and we had an appointment. But anyway, so we're sitting in the library, and there is a power, there is a majesty, there is a thing about a library because you're looking around. It's like the internet, but for real, right? You're looking around at all of this
reality
knowledge. Yeah,
slaps you.
Yeah, and we were watching the kids run around and grab books and go and sit at tables and there's just something about a library that I enjoy today that has never gone away from me. From the first time I remember walking into a library for like the first time, and and they lay this on you. You can check out any book you want, and you're like, what? Really?
Right.
And that's that's what.
And I always had the problem of going in, going, oh, well, I want this one. Oh no, that one's not allowed.
Yeah, I know.
It's usually mechanics.
I would go to
for
the
car stuff.
Yeah, what was the card, the library card system, the Dewey Decimal System?
Dewey,
right?
Dewey Decimal.
And I would go and pull that thing open and go straight to UFO. As soon as I could spell UFO, as soon as I could spell it, I'm talking about young, right? 7, 8 years old. That's what I did when I went into a library. Hey, Fran, enjoy and have a great, fun, safe, merry Quittmas, okay?
You bet I will.
Thank you so much, Fran.
Love you.
Love you
Thank you.
back.
Talk to you later.
Absolutely. What a great show tonight, Jason. Thank you so much. And now you get to go and spend your time with your family and friends and kick off Christmas. And I've only got a minute left. I've got less than that. What are you guys doing tomorrow? Do you guys open up gifts tomorrow night, or do you wait till Christmas Day?
We're going to open them tomorrow before we leave to Monica's parents' place for Christmas Eve.
Yeah, there you go. Well, safe travels. Give our best to Monica, and you guys have a great Quittmas Eve tomorrow night, and go spend it with your family and have a great time.
Thank you again for having me on, and it was so much fun.
Thank you so much, Jason. Behave and be well. And Jason's website is thecrystalsun.com, and it's right there at jimmychurchradio.com. And with that, I'm going to leave you with one more very special track. Here we go. This has been our Merry Quittmas special event with Jason Quitt. I want everybody to go out and enjoy the next 2 days. Spend it with family and friends. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Nothing like Fade to Black on December 23rd. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2019 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Merry Quittmas, everybody. We'll see you on Monday with Billy Carson. Until then, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.